Okay, everybody, welcome to April's Crafty Crows, and we've got a wonderful night for you tonight. We've got two fabulous ladies, wonderful poets that I'm really excited to listen to, and that's Belinda Rimmer and Anna Saunders. But before we go into that, let's start with our open mic. I probably ought, if I get, hold on, just realised, I'm going to start us off with a small poem. I thought to do this one because I'm staring out of it at this moment in time, and it's called The Bay. My window is a triptych on the world. Each sheet of glass alters perspective. Light is brightest in the eastern frame, where the hills rise to the sun, from whence cometh my strength. Their ever-changing aspect calls me to climb. The central panel displays mundane streets, people passing, car exhaust smoking, grit and grime, billboards advertising war, pestilence, famine. The plate to the west cradles the dying sun in its own blood, flecks of red cloud against grey, and the ghostly presence of half a moon. Oh gosh, and now I seem to have lost my Zoom. Hold on, I'm back. Thank you, thank you. Okay, that's brilliant. So, without more ado, because poor Margaret has got the dreaded lurgy and she might have to leave us. So it's welcome, Margaret, if you'd like to do your open mic.
Thank you, Josephine. Yes, and as I said, if I splutter off explosively, just carry on, please. I'll just read one poem that I've written while I've been under the COVID cosh. So I think one will suffice. It's called A Small Slice of Eden. Galloping wild like newborn foals on the moor, bracken tarred, smiles stretching wide as elastic bands, legs pumped with lactic acid, collapsing at last in a grassy hollow. This was childhood's noonday nest, our moss-weaved hour of contentment, when innocent hearts buried important treasure trove, away from the gaze of those who had long since forgotten youth's magic. Grandma's lace-fringed handkerchief, J for Jessie, monogrammed sunset gold, the stitching layered like her turreted chocolate cake tower, as though future generations might forget the laughter launched from her spittled lips when we giggled our childish jokes from behind grubby hands. My aunt's Devon violets, empty scent bottle, violet butterflies strewn across her ample bosoms, a tsunami of petals holding back the reprimands that never could quite get past the tip of her tongue. They bathed our bones in fragrant bubbles, bandage grazed knees, hummed healing spells over sick teddy bears and dolls. She was always the epitome of kindness. Minutes ticked away in maypole dance rhythm. The dust and clay of past and future ebbed and flowed. Earth's metronome beating time, lest time itself should shapeshift into a monster too grim to handle. We trusted in the moment, happy in our skin. Time seemed elastic back then. Perhaps we should have buried that too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Margaret. Please, if you would unmute and give a big hand to Margaret Royal. That was lovely.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Love the language.
Yeah.
Okay, and while her internet collection keeps going, Bruce, next up, Pratibha Castle. Welcome, Pratibha.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Great to be here. So I'm going to read something from a triptych of Birds and a Few Loose Feathers, my book, which was just published a few weeks ago. And then I'll read a newer poem, thank you, which appeared in the Friday poem, also a couple of weeks ago, Poems for Ukraine. Padraig, who drove the snakes out of Ireland. At the allotment, Daddy forked the crumbly black earth till the air quaked with anticipation of excess. Me sifting stones in search of treasure. The robin sat pert on the lip of the bucket, meant to carry spuds or cabbages, the occasional giggle tickle carrot back to placate the mammy. The bird's eye bright with a lust for worms, his song a crystal cataract of merry. Though none of the seeds we sowed ever showed head out of the sly earth, and we saw nothing of the slow worm Daddy promised, so that his name being Padraig too, I guessed he must be a saint, especially when he himself vanished. Though he turned up months later at the end of school, again and again and again, till I had to tell the mammy where the books and toys came from, and that got me sent off to board at St. Bridget's Convent, where the head nun was nice to you if your mammy gave her fruit cake in a tin, bottles of orange Linctus sherry, a crochet shawl like frothy cobwebs, none of which my mammy could afford, Padraig having banished more than snakes. Thank you. And this next one is called In the Slips. It's inspired by the current world situation. While the world watches, Violetta, clad in years, the measure of a week, journeys from Odessa with her doll and cat, and a grandma, her face a crumpled map of lifetime drills, framed by a scarf the color of losing, urges a boy soldier, put this flower in your pocket, hopes his flesh, rotted into trampled mud, bone and blood transmuted to a claggy womb, will birth a crop of smiling sunflowers. And men in black, as if spectators at a cricket match, watch a tank grizzle over cobblestones across the city square, while a man sprints into its path, scoops up a hand grenade, underarms it at a pile of rubble, the dog end dangling from his lip, a red-eyed fuse. Thank you.
That was incredible.
Sorry, I got stuck writing something at the end of that because I loved the last line. Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much, Pratibha. Can you please all unmute and give Pratibha a round of applause? They were brilliant poems.
Absolutely.
Right, gosh, we're doing really well. Okay, straight on. Please, Michael Findler.
Yeah, great.
Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, great to be here. Not surprisingly, same theme, seeing how it's on all of our minds, no doubt. Did this one for a event the other day that Dane Hintz put together, which was really neat. It's called Besieged. Tiny girl, little more than a toddler, scrambles through rubble, searching for family in still hot crater. History of home in 1,000 pieces, future dark as soot-caked wall. Older girl from adjacent building, hungry pup howling at her heel, pulls child from fruitless labor, shows her to relative safety, offers her tea and a tattered picture book, mends the little one's wounds. Still tank barrel rises from the golden field, smoke escaping from twisted metal wafts from wreckage. Old veterans, battle-hardened long ago in Afghanistan, know how Russia's army fights, know how it was defeated, use what they learned far away to protect their home from invasion. Dire whining clamor drowns out barking, yowling, and wailing as concussive salvos shake the foundation of bunker. Tired mother pulls children close, soothes with songs of innocence, wipes eyes, changes diapers, fills bottles not with milk but gasoline, torn rag topped, ready to be tossed towards mercenaries. What cannot be changed must be endured, but this must change, will change, is changing. The world sees a catastrophe, a massacre. The world must move against the madman. Ukraine will not stand alone. Ukraine will stand. Mothers will once again fill bottles with milk, raise children with hope in golden fields under blue skies.
Oh, brilliant, Michael. Thank you so much. There were so many vivid images in that poem.
Wow.
Okay, do I have time for another one, or is that's it?
I think I'm terribly sorry, Michael.
Okay, that's fine.
We need to get as many people in as possible. But
Okay,
I love that. Loved it. Thank you so much. Okay, if we move on to Catherine Southworth. Catherine, are you there?
I'm here. So
Hi.
I brought two poems. The first is a slight lightening in tone. Magnificat for the lady on the scaffolding. Miss Martin is building her own scaffold. Michelangelo of Angeltown, Brixton. You can see a wrench in the pocket of that virginal pale blue dress come overall. For she has no assistant but her sister Madge, one of 9 Irish siblings. And the master mosaicist is not one for modern studio techniques, but practices the direct method of the ancients, learned from visits to Italy. Paid from her own purse, though she still lives at home. Laying the tesserae on panels of beeswax and linseed, like the portrait of Jeanne d'Arc, done for the Catholic Women's Guild. Now she places the blue Venice smalty for Mary's mantle halfway up to heaven, and shall trust no one but herself for the face of awe and fear and love. As the mother collects the puzzling tributes and ponders all the mysteries in her heart. Miss Martin is building her own scaffold, but with her next commission, her purse will be filled. When her saints in the Palace of Westminster take the eye of Mrs. Churchill, who'll make sure she gets her reward with a government purse. So raise a lily for Gertrude Martin, for her loneliness was exalted. And this next poem is a villanelle called Cry of the Earth. While children plant their hopeful sapling, the giant redwoods are burning away. The trees are wringing their hands in the wind. Fire up the spaceships, our planet is twinned, a new Earth waits to be found someday, while children plant their hopeful sapling. But air will be quiet with no birds to sing. Skies will be lonely at close of each day. Trees are wringing their hands in the wind. Did the fall start the day Adam sinned? Thought every apple was his anyway. The children are planting their hopeful sapling. Count the butterflies left, the pattern of wings. Fill the verges with wild flowers, let grasses sway. Leave the leaves, the trees wringing their hands in the wind. On the window pane, a yellow leaf clings, trusting the world won't, this time, betray the children planting their hopeful sapling. Trees that are wringing their hands in the wind. Thank you.
That was lovely. Thank you so much, Catherine. Can you unmute and give Catherine a really big round of applause? Thank you for the lovely poem. Gosh, we're doing really well. The next person up is Cynthia. Cynthia Winfield.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Permission to share my screen. Okay, here we go. Let's see if I can find the, hold on. Gosh, sorry. There we go. Can you see chapter 7? I want to learn to give light. Okay, this is from a new book coming out hopefully this summer, Meredith's first chapter. I work with Howard in the hotel kitchen, taking orders, serving food, feeding guests, all hungry. Howard and his roommate have something called Divine Light, which has changed their lives for the better. So I'll be attending the primary spiritual development course with them this week. We'll go over Thursday night and stay through Monday, learning about the Divine Light, what it is, how to give it, learning to raise our hands. I've seen Howard doing this in the kitchen, and his tips are out of this world. If someone else happens to deliver one of his orders to a table as a matter of course, often that food comes back. The diner complains and waits hungrily for their meal to return with better flavor or texture, cooked differently. But I've seen him. Howard can take that same plate that came back and give it light, return it to the table, and have a happy diner. The difference is in the divine light, which explains part of why I will be learning as much as I can about it this weekend. Plus, there are other parts of my life I would like to make better. Although becoming a whiz in the kitchen would be a nice place to start, with better tips, I would be hungry less often. I'm ready for this course. One of the areas I want to learn about in this course are the blessings. When Howard gives a plate light and receives a nice tip, he calls it a material blessing. I am hungry for such blessings, and I am eager to learn how I can manifest them at home, with friends, or in the kitchen. I could stand to see some of my relationships get better. True, I left home because life there was hard. I wanted better. Well, of course, running away, living on the street, borrowing a friend's address to get a job in a kitchen was not the picture of easy. My burdens did not feel light, but with Howard and Amara and their adult friends, I'm learning to secure housing and SNAP benefits so I won't go hungry. Working in food service is ideal for someone who is hungry. Discount meals, or even better, free food which has expired its sell-by time, which is rare though. I am learning of perhaps creating some moves to assist with that. I should feel bad creating orders for the kitchen, which I'm pretty sure the customer won't like and will send back, but my heart feels so light when in the course of an evening I score a free meal. Working while hungry in a kitchen can be dangerous, leading me to these decisions, which I could make better. Steer the customer to a surefire win, because if they're ordering lobster tails but saying, I don't know how I feel about lobster, I may be about to score a dinner I cannot afford to buy, and I feel light, giddy with anticipation. That's just for a good meal. I have even more excitement for the learning to come from this course. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. That was lovely. Very interesting and different.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Okay, and we'll go straight on to Lucia. Lucia Daramus. Hello.
Hello. One poem for tonight, The Old Man. The Old Man by Lucia Daramus. A white thought was offering to me, blooming out in my mind, as a flower such of flower as may, from a pretty rose tree. In my mind, it was an old man, very old, offering to people thoughts flowers. Maybe their ideas will unite in soul peace for this earth. I am a man as any other man, he said, and my heart will bloom for eternity on this soil, on this earth. And I reject wars, fights, and bad debates, because my soul is crying for all women and children of Ukrainian land. I know this old man from my mind. I met him yesterday on the street. He was polite, talking with humans about peace, but his soul, beautiful soul, was crying for our world. Oh, Russian, he said, soldiers, don't leave your bombs to fall on the grass. The grass is so fragile and will die from each garden of our planet. Putin, your thoughts are paranoid. I'm so sorry for your actions. Tolstoy, Pushkin, and Dostoevsky will cry and will eat mud with blood, Ukrainian blood, in their tombs. Putin, you have a big culture, respected culture, but you, Putin, you destroy this, and you, Putin, will wash your culture in blood, genocide, blood, tongues, tombs, on the streets, deaths, elders crying, children lamenting, and deaths, deaths, deaths. Putin, you dig in this soil of Europe graves, tombs, and destructible fire. You, Putin, like Pilate, you have on your hands Ukrainian blood. Like Hitler, you kill people, innocent people, civilians. Are you, Putin, and your army a contemporary Nazi? After his words, the old man gave me a rose with a heart, his smile heart. Rose, 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 in love delight, dancing in people's minds like his beauty bright. But, oh Putin, your thought is dead. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Lucia. That was very powerful. And everybody really feels with you about the whole horrible situation. So please unmute and give Lucia another round of applause. Okay, next up we have Annie Ellis. Hi, Annie.
Hello. I'm going to read two short ones from my book, Nature at a Cost.
Lovely.
The first one's called The Silk Weaver. Thread as fine as spider's web, drawn from cocoons of the mulberry silkworm. It shimmers as it is pulled in one long length, dried and dyed, ready to be spun. His slubbed hands toss the shuttle back and forth across the loom, feet beating out a rhyme as they change the warp. For days he works, threads dust the floor. A pattern takes hold, weft slowly filling. Scenes of the Orient break out. And the other one is called Burning Bright. Your paws dance, leaving a smoky smell. You don't need to stalk for prey. Blazing a lava flow behind your tail. Everywhere you touch scorches the ground. You roll in the dry grass, sending sparks to ride on the wind, until out of control they grab at life, turning wood to ash. Your amber eyes flicker, feeling the rage. With a roar, the wind screams back. Everything turns black, like the stripes on your golden coat.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful. Thank you, Annie. Please unmute and give Annie a lovely round of applause.
Thank you.
Love your animal poems, Annie. They're
Thank you very
beautiful.
much.
And last but not least, we have Doc Janning. Doc, are you there? I've lost him.
He wrote in the chat that he had to go, his credit card got compromised. Look for him, maybe he'll be back at the end. Yeah, he might get it solved.
Okay, well, we'll choose someone else and hopefully we'll be able to get him back. I'm going to say, have we, Julie, are you here? Julie Stevens? Yeah, that's it. Brilliant. Would you be okay for doing it now? And then we'll, yeah.
Yep,
Brilliant.
I can. Apologies if you were at Dragonflies last night, because I would like to do one of the poems again. This came from one of Anna's workshops on when we were writing about the city and other places too. This is where I have turned MS, multiple sclerosis, into a city. And I would like you to come so that you can get an idea of what it's like. This way. Let me take you where the grass is laced with razors, where the paths are a menace of rocks, where the air is deep in sludge. Wear what you like, protect against the current, whatever will smash the storms, the missiles, the brutal clamps, the hands that heave you down. You won't see them. Come with me. We need to start. Let me take you where the nights are sliced in half, where the sun lies on your back, where time oars careers backwards. Bring what you like. We have food, but it's a drug for sleep. We have drinks, but there are brutal exits. We have cutlery, but it's a devil to hold. Bring what is cooked. We don't prepare. Come, where I go, you need to see. Let me take you to this city where no one speaks your language, where days are blitzed by symptoms, where plans shatter as barbed fireworks. Leave when you like. The exit is invisible. Disease can be ruthless inside. Silent soldiers plant elusive bombs. You need to look further than the sky. Come where I live. It looks like you're ready. Thanks.
Wow, that's a brilliant idea, a brilliant way of describing it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, Julie, but people call you another thing, don't they? Online.
Call me Jumping Jules.
Jumping Jules, that's right. So Julie and Jumping Jules, thank you so much. A big round of applause for Julie.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, we come to one of our highlights tonight, and it really gives me great pleasure to introduce Belinda Rimmer. Belinda is a writer of poetry and flash fiction. She's published in magazines including Under the Radar, Ink, Sweat and Tears, Dyslexia, Acumen, Confingos, Strix and Popshot. In 2018, she was runner-up in the Ambit Poetry Competition. Her pamphlet, Touching Sharks in Monaco, was a joint winner of the Indigo First Pamphlet Competition, published in 2019. And her most recent pamphlet, entitled Holding On, came out in November with 2021 with New Walk Editions. I love Belinda's poems, and I know you will too. So please unmute and give her a big round of applause. Woo! Welcome, Belinda.
Hi, thank you. That was such a moving and inspiring open mic. I just hope I can do it justice. And I'm really pleased to be supporting Anna, who really, her encouragement set me off on my poetic journey. So that's quite an honour. And I'm going to start off with a new poem. And it's the first time I've shared it. And it's due to come out in my forthcoming chapbook, which has been due to come out for about 2 years. So fingers crossed it won't be too much longer. And it's about the life and work of a writer called Tilly Olsen, who worked in the 1930s. And due to poverty, work commitments, child rearing, she only produced 3, but they were 3 outstanding books. When you don't know the word for writing, 1. Say how it feels in the mouth, on a tongue, at the back of a throat. Say how it sounds, a saucepan of boiling water, a muttering. Call it billowing sheets, dust collecting. Call it bones or tail feathers. Don't be afraid. Be thankful you didn't have a name for it, but did it anyway. 2. She'd write of the sky outside her window, some shade that isn't quite blue, of constellations, the pain of watching stars fade, but work, always work, demands everything of her. On a square of her kitchen table sits last night's poem, or fragment, or prayer. The next poem is also a new poem, and I've been inspired greatly by the work of creative photographers. And this poem is inspired by a photograph by Adrian Donahue, whose work I've used quite a lot, and he's been very generous in allowing me to use his images. And it does touch on childhood trauma. It's called Thunder, after Adrian Donahue, The Colouring Book, 2021. This is how he comes at night in his feather hat, boots the colour of mud, on his horse through the mist. She stands at the window as if shaken from a dream, as if she's been here once before at this window, watching his horse spitting up the turf and his ugly feather hat. A whole fluttering of birds in her tummy, the way it felt strange when he untied the ribbons in her hair. She collects her colouring book, shuffles the loose pages, then she crayons and crayons him away. And this is just a short poem. And as I get older, I don't know if it's an age thing, but childhood memories become more and more vivid. And this one is for my brothers, and it's called Brothers in Arms. My father always held my brothers, one on each arm, to raise them from the ground, years after they'd grown to men. There was nothing of me back then but bone, yet he never held me dizzy and don't look down the way he held them, which seems to matter more now than it did then. Now I'm going to go to my first pamphlet, which came out in 2019, which seems actually like a whole different world away, and in so many ways it is. The first poem explores this fear that I felt after I had my first son, that I was going to do something accidentally that might hurt him. and it's called Blades. She flipped the knives in the drawer, covered them with a tea towel. Her son knew nothing of her fear, how she imagined a hand slipping to pierce his little heart under chubby white skin, smug with newness. If his hair fell into knots, she didn't untangle it, afraid one small hurt could lead to another. To soothe him, she played Beethoven in the front room, away from those sharp edges. She scratched his name into the wooden frame, a talisman. Still those knives haunted her day and night, their unvoiced shadow. And this poem, in a sense, comes full circle, and it's about the trouble I had letting my son go, and it's called In a Museum with Frida Kahlo. It comes to us all. For me, it came in a museum with Frida Kahlo in the dead of night. Shadows fell from her paintings, slashed my pool of light. Frida in chains, at play with a monkey and in a hospital bed. The groan of cooling walls accompanied me to the top floor. I glimpsed Frida again. In photographs, her long neck strained, eyebrows arched, her eyes dark as my own. No star-filled sky or lure of Lisbon streets could wrench me from Frida. It was my son's voice, how he wasn't coming home, not then, not for a long time. It comes to us all, missing children. For me, it came in a museum with Frida Kahlo in the dead of night. I hadn't realised until I was searching through my poems for tonight that I seem to have an obsession with apple trees. And it's another one, just coincidentally, that is about my dad. Maybe because I've been to a family gathering and I think my dad's been in my mind when I've been putting these poems together. And it's called On a Curving Beach, in memory of Benjamin Sayers, 1933 to 1999. My father's in a white vest, hair slicked back. I'm in a knitted bikini, digging in the sand. I unearth a shell. My father jokes, it's radioactive, bluer than the word blue, written in a blue pen. He holds it to his ear to hear a cathedral choir. I hear seabirds learning the language of waves. All day we feast on its blueness, make plans to hang it from the apple tree, the one we planted from a pip. But it ends up on a bathroom ledge until it bleaches to a grubby grey. No moment of loss, just a gradual fading, as if this were never our shell and we had never spoken so highly of blue. And this is another poem that has been inspired by a photograph. And the photograph is by Paul J. And it's called A Bird Might Speak. Everything is black as funeral hats without his grandfather. He goes to the apple tree, the one they planted together. Spring sun blurs the blossom, signals change. A bird lands on his shoulder, a joy of blue-green feathers. Perched on a nest, it would be a song of brooding, but on his shoulder it's silent as dust, and so still it must be sleeping. I've got two more poems, if that's okay. And the first one is based on my years as a psychiatric nurse and all the patients I encountered that taught me so much about myself and about life. And this one is called Bank Nurse. I hand her a glowing cocktail of antipsychotic, sleeping and vitamin tablets. Fuck off, she says. She likes her voices. They tell her she looks pretty in yellow. A slammed door. She's halfway down the hospital corridor on her way to the wood. I've been told to let her go, a gust of fresh air, a dusting of sun, and she'll be back. But I find myself among the trees with the foraging blackbirds and bluebell shoots. And there she is, hanging from a branch like a bat, dress over her head, scratches on her bark brown legs. Sensing me, she shimmies down the trunk. Together, we walk back through the wood, and I hear her voices speak of love. And my final poem is called Circa 1979. And it was a tough time for women to grow up in the 70s and 80s. And I think many of us, many women here, will have a poem similar to this. He'd picked you off the dance floor, except he hadn't walked you home. It was an alley, cleaner than sun. You remember a cluster of leaves, autumn, and Kit Kat wrappers, flickering red, silver. His arms encircled or pinned you to the wall. Rain dripped on your shoes. You didn't know how to say stop, or if you did, you didn't say it. Or maybe you said it, but it didn't sound right. Maybe you didn't want it to stop in the clean alley with the glinting Kit Kat wrappers. You'd become separated from your shoes. You might have pushed him away, but you don't think so. It became noisy, your shoes on the other side of the alley. You might have been shouting something unreasonable, he might have said. Maybe you were paying attention to the rain, thinking about Grease, the musical, or how your dad always bought you a Kit Kat on his way home from work. Thank you so much for listening. I loved reading my poems for you.
Oh, that was absolutely wonderful, Belinda. I love your poems, and you are a master of the last line. You are a master of capturing human emotion. Fabulous. Please, everyone, unmute and really show your appreciation for a wonderful set. Thank you, Belinda. Wonderful. Please look at the comments later, because there were so many wonderful comments. You deserve to see them.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, wow. So we are going to have a short break now, 10 minutes, okay? So Jason, if you'd like to stop. Yep. Okay, just before we start, I just want to put a couple of thoughts out about next month. We're going to, if you can't get down to the Lyra Fest in Bristol, Crafty Crows is going to bring part of the Lyra Fest to you with Lucy English. I'm really excited about this. So Lucy English will be performing, she'll be headlining, and we'll have our own Jason Conway to support her, who is at present doing an MA in Bath Spa anyway. So it's a Bath Spa connection, which is brilliant. As Jason's been putting on the chat, we don't charge for these events, but because we like to give a fee to our poets, it would be great if you can just donate anything like a coffee or a glass of wine. You know, if you were out and about, that's probably what you'd be buying for yourself. So please donate that. It would be lovely. The other thing is, consider becoming a friend of the GPS. The friendship membership above it also allows you 3 free entries into the GPS poetry competition and a free edition copy of the trawler, this year's trawler. So give it, he's just put it up on the chat now. So that is brilliant, and that's going to be me. Finish that there. Okay, I'll just quickly do one little poem before we start. And this one is called, and this came from Anna's workshop, The Body Electric. It's called Fine Dining. If when you have cooked a meal and seasoned it with your love, I choose to eat it with the tiniest fork, place each morsel on my tongue, pausing to savor the experience. Do not laugh at me or scold or moan, for I am tasting you within your dish, and this is how I love. If when we embrace, I kiss your eyelids before your lips, if I pause to inhale your perfume and feel the warmth of you radiating beneath the sheets, do not chide me for my slow technique or think me cooling in my desire. Love should be relished before I devour the rest of you. So that's a little odd one, but I think I'll just stick it in there. Okay, right. Next up, we are going to have a lovely experience. Okay, gives me enormous pleasure to introduce Anna Saunders. Anna has been described by the North magazine as a poet who can surely do anything. A modern myth maker by Paul Stephenson, and Tears in the Fence said of her, Anna Saunders' poetry is reminiscent of Plath, with all its alpha achievement and radiance. Anna is the author of Communion, Wild Conversations Press, Struck, Pindrop Press, Kissing the She-Bear, Wild Conversations Press, Burne Jones and the Fox, Ghosting for Beginners and Feverfew, all published by Indigo Dreams. Feverfew has been described as rich with obsession, sensuousness and potency by Ben Ray, and as a beautiful necessary collection by Penny Shuttle. Anna is currently working on the Prohibition of Touch, due out in 2022 with Indigo Dreams. And of course, she's not put in her bio, but I have to say she is the CEO of Cheltenham Poetry Festival. She is a mentor and a great supporter of poets. And so many of us here have benefited from her amazing talent and friendship. So without more of ado, please, would you give it a warm welcome for Anna Saunders.
Oh, not sure what's happening. Thank you, everyone.
Fine.
Sorry, I'm trying to hide myself so I don't have to stare at myself when I read. Thank you for the nicest introduction I've ever had. Really beautiful. Thank you. Really delighted to be here. Quite nervous because there's such a star-studded open mic of so many amazing published poets. Also, I thought there were more open micers before me, so I didn't have my book ready because I was really listening in to some fabulous poetry. It's a weird time to be a poet, isn't it? Because there's so many dark and challenging things that we almost feel if we don't write about them, you feel guilty. But also, how can you write about things that we aren't directly experiencing? Anyway, I am going to start my set with a poem I wrote about another war quite a few years ago, Multani Miti, which means khaki. And it's about the fact that human beings can have great evil. Well, evil's a I don't like that word, it's OTT, but human beings can be cruel and compassionate too, and what a dissonance that is. Multani Miti. She dreams as if her mind was swathed in khaki, dun dreams, dusty with earth and ashes. When she wakes, she remembers how after smoking something filthy, her son had knocked that girl to the ground. 15 years old and on her way home after looting, arms full of overripe apples, toilet tissues and tins. Out there a month, he'd already seen bloated bodies bob like sick fish on the surface of rivers, his own men blown jack-in-the-box through the roofs of jeeps. Once, home on leave, he'd bought her a silk scarf. She'd been astonished at how its colour matched the green in her eyes. That's a poem from Struck, beautiful cover from a Stroud-based artist called Adam White. You might like to check out his work. That's the only one I'm going to read from Struck, but later on I'm going to be showing 2 short films. Apologies to those of you who've already seen the films. I will give a very brief introduction, and there's 2 poems from this book, and they are absolutely stunning films. Moving on to a great love of my life. I think you all know how I feel about Dylan Thomas. This is a wonderful book from Indigo Dreams. I feel like I'm on a shopping channel now. It's an anthology of poems after and letters to Dylan Thomas with some incredible writers. Adam Horowitz is in here. I think some more of you are in here, but I'm sorry not to give you all the name check, but it's really worth getting this book. And this is a poem I wrote about my love of Dylan. It's called A Dream. Dylan, I dreamt I was your poem. Your words wriggled in their genesis like tadpoles hatching in a stream. Dylan, I dreamt I was the page. Your starfish fingers splayed gold on my skin. Your writing ribboning like bladderwhack. In a roost as high as a rockery over an estuary where the mirroring sun pools, you filled me with beak-hard vowels, consonants hard, soft as the sands. Every creature asleep, the rooks in their crowns of thorn, the gulls on their settled waters, and the night mute of caw or cry, just your ghost whispering through my lines. How close we were, Dylan, intimate as only the poem and the page can be. Your mouth as tight to my page as the incoming tide to the shore. And that's my tribute to Dylan. Moving on to my book, Feverfew, which came out about a year ago, I think, with Indigo Dreams. And how do I describe Feverfew? Well, there's a lot of intensity within this book. Quite a lot of people experiencing intense emotions as well as the gods. And this first poem from it is called 2 Seasons with Prometheus. You might well know, I'm sure you all do because you're very learned in audience. Prometheus was punished for stealing fire and he was bound to a rock and his heart was picked out by a bird. 2 Seasons with Prometheus. In spring, like Prometheus, I stole fire and inflamed my lover's dark bed. I carried it, a blazing creature, sprouting wings, gauzy feathers, twitching as fast as a maniac's tongue. That same season, I saw the bird come, its wingspan a frayed shadow, its cry as harsh as the caw of the crow, tinged with the sweetness of the robin. And the name of the bird was Love. My soul, I was torn at by gold beaks. The bird plucked my heart as if it were tearing ripe berries from a bush. With time, my gouged heart healed. That summer, I stole fire again, brought it to another lover like a spitting crown, like a seething gold-toothed mouth. But the gods, again, bound me to rock, cold spine of stone. And the bird came back, wings like blades hacking up the sky, its cry harsh as the caw of the crow. one more poem from Feverfew. I thought that crows ate, like many other birds, seeds, but I was told you need to leave out for them meat, which I didn't fancy leaving meat on my windowsill. I don't really eat meat, and I thought it might not be very pleasant. So I've written about this metaphorically and literally. I'm feeding a bird called love. I have read somewhere it eats berries, so I scatter glistening orbs on the stone slab of my windowsill. They're like beads from a broken necklace, and the sun catches them and they blaze, but it doesn't descend. At night I dream of the beautiful night sky wing. I later learn that the tease of my sweet morsels won't satisfy it, that it prefers bodies flattened by collisions, live flailing creatures on their way down. How bloodied is the lure required to bring love down from the sky? Forget the rose-red offerings, the pale breads. Erotic heaven wants the hot mess, the dripping bait. Put out skin, split from collisions, unspooling red ribbons, the heart bulging and bruised to a pulp like berries crushed underfoot, love to guzzle as wine. Almost brutal. Thank you, Josephine. I'll get that put on the back of the next book. Almost brutal. I don't think this one is any less brutal. I'm going to read a couple more, and actually Josephine very kindly is going to read 2 for me. When I read, I always feel I've read for too long, and I am keeping an eye on time, but I always fear I'm going to bore everyone. So, does everyone know who Pasiphae is? Pasiphae was cursed by Poseidon and made to fall in love with a bull. And she was the Minotaur's mother. So that gives you a few hints as to the subject matter of this poem. Pasiphae's collection. Confession. Actually, this is the first poem for the Prohibition of Touch, which is a collection all about touch, the absence of touch, the politicization of touch. Pasiphae's confession. Forgive me, Father. Eros kicked in the door as I slept. I dreamt of flanks gleaming like wet stone, the suede nap of nose. Father, I ran to Daedalus. He used oak, mahogany, built a wooden cow, bade me climb into it so the ox would think I was its own. A sailor brought the rope, looped it through the bull's nose ring, pulled him to me. I was fragrant with vanilla oils, as if it mattered how I smelt. All night the violins are played to drown out the sounds. Father, the wood still stands firm, and in the bed he built I swell like a pomegranate. One day Daedalus will construct a maze in which to entrap my hoofed son. But first he brings me the wooden beast for me to enter into, as if lust itself meant hunkering in the emptiness of an animal's heart. Now, I'm going to pass over to Josephine to read a poem for me. Thank you very much. It's called A Dream of Fire. This poem was inspired by the true story of an American arsonist who, instead of approaching the object of his desire, he would go and follow them home and then burn their house down. Sorry, this is quite macabre. Anyway, Josephine's going to read it and hopefully elevate the tone. It's called A Dream of Fire.
Thank you, Anna. It's a pleasure and an honour to read these poems. A Dream of Fire. Late shift at the diner. Soot smuts the window. A patch of grease suggests a man's face. Thomas steals a milk bottle, siphons gasoline, rips cloth to shape a wick, clasps a box of matches as he follows a handsome stranger home. Desire is a fire lit under a house. The inferno, his hands, flames rising like fingers pouring at skin. His wife lies waiting for him, wondering why he never touches her, why his clothes smell of smoke and sulphur. He creeps back into his house. In the dark, his fingertips petalled with soot. As she sleeps, she dreams of a wedding dress made of fire, each dart of fabric a scorching blade. First stitches are red as the rosebud, red as a coxcomb, red as the pomegranate, red as the bloodied face. There are skirts hot enough to burn the skin to tinder. Gold as butterscotch, gold as the honey, gold as the pulsing heart of the pyre. Thomas sees flames everywhere, in the autumn leaf, the river's coruscating tail, his wife's lashing tongue. In the morning, the sheets look bruised with charcoal, black as a mourning stone, black as a funeral suit, black as a heart charred in the flames.
Thank you, Josephine. You read that so beautifully.
Thank you.
I will read one more poem, and then if you'd like to read Flotsam, Josephine, and then we'll show the films.
Brilliant.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. This next film, sadly, was inspired by a true story. The Prohibition of Touch, there are a lot of stories about violence to women and girls, and obviously to men as well. I'm speaking from a female perspective. But this was a really sad story because it was about a girl who suffered abuse from a grooming gang, and she was interviewed on the radio, and she'd heard that skin renews every 7 years, and she thought finally she would have a new skin. She likes the room they do biology. It is how she imagines the moon to look up close, the clear white surfaces, the spectral light. In the morning, she learns how the body rebuilds itself every 7 years or so, how old cells die and are replaced by new. A little like leaves, she says, the old ones falling, fresh buds breaking out in spring. She loves the way they study the body in class, learn its rules and possibilities. School is a safe place, and she likes the company of her peers, but even better, she likes to be alone, lying in bed, watching the moon, nothing but sheets touching her. To take her mind from memories of the men, she thinks of what she learnt earlier, how the body sloughs off dead cells and hair, recreates itself. One day, she thinks, she will have a whole new body, one those men have never touched. The moon has tried to teach her this already. Watch this, it says, and each night goes into the darkness and comes out dazzling white again, as if reborn. Thank you for listening. Josephine is going to read my last poem, and I hope I haven't monopolised the stage.
Oh my gosh, no.
I did time my set, and then we're going to just show 2 short films.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you, Anna. Flotsam. Today, the sea broke the back of another boat. Is there nothing strong enough to withstand the weight of water? Your depression makes you weak. But this morning, we walked on the beach. The sun, dull yellow as an old bruise. As the wind beat the pampas grass, you told me in a weak voice about how tiny plastic toys washed up on a remote shore after a boat was wrecked close to home. We stepped carefully across a line of flotsam, a broken comb, a pink ribbon, a gold coin entangled amongst the bladder wrack. All these things smashed on the shore at the whim of the sea. You told me not to be upset about your sickness. But tonight I cried for the little toy ducks bobbing, hollow and lost on the dark waves.
Thank you, Josephine. I think I'll get you to read my poems every time. I'm sorry if this goes a bit lo-fi. 2 very short poem films. The first one is inspired by the poem Struck, which is comparing a lightning striking a tree to falling in love. And the second one is called Fireworks, which is about a moment of emotional cooling after an act of intimacy, which parallels the disappearing of fireworks from the sky. So I hope this worked okay. Thank you everyone for listening. These films are made by Ellen Dewberry, Elephant's Footprint. Hopefully we should be able to see something soon. Sorry about this. Right, what's happening? We've just got massive font and nothing else. Can everyone see it? Can people see, yeah? Right.
Walking together for the first time, our path is crossed by a tree downed by lightning. Charred and toppled, lying spent, boughs frozen in the act of grasping. One tree struck amongst countless upstanding trunks. How sudden the hit. Easy to miss the first trailers, drawing a route for the bolt. Preemptive strikes, whose sketched path arouses a tremor like a finger swooping down the spine. Quicksilvers, synapses shooting signals from fingers to brain. This is how you come undone. The flicker, then hot bolt, igniting the husk, roots splitting like scorched stitches, until any hold on the earth is lost and the whole torso tumbles and falls. We are too remote to hear the strike of sulphur, to watch a pole pushed into pliant earth. Your skin is already cooling. Our reflections haunt black glass. I circle the edges of your light like a moth, twitch at the shriek and the high-pitched whine of ascension. Not a breath is spent. Light spangles, colour blooms, a flower under time-lapse photography. It's as if it never happened, I say. And you talk about burnout as the warm wax of your body goes cold. You are already in the other room when it begins again, and you miss the whisper, then rising cry before another explosion, even brighter than the last, makes its fleeting impression upon a darkening sky.
Thank you for watching. They were by Helen Dewberry, if you'd like to look up her work. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Anna. That was absolutely fabulous. Please, would you all unmute and give Anna the applause she deserves? Her poems are so fabulous, and I was
Thank you very much for listening.
Thank
you.
Ooh, I could listen for hours. Never get bored, Anna, never get bored. It's scintillating poetry, wonderful. Gosh, so deep breath now, and to carry on in the moment with our open mic. I would ask Anna if she gets the time later to put her books on the chat, so that if anybody wants to get any of her books, to do so, because they are all wonderful. Okay. So we'll move on, and we'll start with our very own Jason Conway. Big hand, please.
Thank you, Josephine. Okay, this is called Sestina as the Storm. Outside the window was a fierce storm. The wind shouted and the hedge shook. Decapitated teasels spiked the ground as a weathered windmill was blurred. A white dog and his man walked afield. Jackdaws hovered as dark as the clouds. Layers of burden blackened the clouds as 4 birches stood naked in the storm by swings that swung empty in the field. Branches were broken, leaves shook. Tree lines in the distance were blurred as beaks stabbed at things in the ground. Compost bags flapped on the ground while magpies played chess below clouds, and dogs barked behind gates, coats blurred. Buildings and land were bruised by the storm, and people on the news, distraught, shaken, as green-bladed grass thrashed in the field. The flash of litter disturbed the field as savage weather beat the ground. Cows blotted a hillside, colours shaken. Hilltops were scuffed by swollen clouds, and life felt urgent in the clutch of the storm, while the wind clawed and the sky blurred. A fir tree shivered, its needles blurred, while wood pigeons flurried from the field, as the washing line whipped in the storm. Overturned pots broke on the ground, and the sun burnt a hole in the clouds. Whatever bore those gusts shook. Walls were questioned, fences shook, the garden smudged, borders blurred. Remember feeling lost in the clouds? When they called, who blinked out the field? As the kettle howled and coffee was ground, left us bitter, like the storm. But the ground blurred and the room clouded. Away from the field, rain expected. I shook my head, caught the storm in my hands.
Well, wow, that was brilliant, Jason. That really worked very well. It was great. Thank you so much. Big hand to Jason Conway. Woo. Gosh. Okay. No, Agatha Palmer's not here, so we will move on to Mary Dickens. Mary Dickens. Hi, welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful so far. I'm going to read 2 poems from my pamphlet, Happiness FM. And the first one is a found poem. I had a poetry residency at a children's nursery. And as part of the activities, I asked the adults, the staff and the parents to collect questions that children asked that adults found really difficult to answer. And this poem was the result. So it's called I Don't Know, Go and Play. And it's real questions asked by small children. Where does the green go in winter? Why doesn't water have bones? When will it be yesterday? When is a puddle a pond? How far can you go under? How far can you go up? Why is the moon broken tonight? Where do bubbles go when they pop? Are two of anything the same? Is a spider's web its home? Why is the rain going sideways? Why are snails so slow? Can a tomato kill you? How many years old is snow? Has anyone counted all the stars? Where did my shadow go? What keeps the sky from falling down? Why can't I see my own eyes? I really, really need to know if my apple is dead or alive. Thank you. That was the first one. Second one's a title poem from my collection, and it's about the eternal human quest for happiness. It's called Happiness FM. Happiness is a radio station you chance upon that plays music so sublime, you're immediately transported. Next day, you try to find it, but no matter how long you scan the airwaves, it's drowned by crackling interference. Sometimes you hear snatches in the background, so you try and try again and again and again and again, until you realise that only fate decides the frequency of Happiness FM, and some people have better reception than others. Thank you.
Oh, it's very wonderful.
Yeah, thank you, Mary. That's a fascinating first poem with all those real children's voices. Wonderful, wonderful way of doing it. Thank you. Okay, where are we? The next person up is Beth Brooke. Welcome, Beth. Big hand for Beth.
Hi, what a nice time I'm having. So, two poems. The great thing about my poems, as you know, is they are short. And this is one that I wrote in Anna's workshop when we were looking at place in particular cities. It's called I Lived There Once, and it's about my memories of being a child growing up in Benghazi between 1965 and 1968. I remember the Corniche, the broad strip of road that edged the sea, lined by palm trees either side, narrow fibrous trunks painted white, dusty green frond crowns. I remember the colonnaded streets, magenta paper lanterns of bougainvillea strung against ochre walls, how they rustled with the wings of sparrows in the evenings, seethed with the joy of it. I remember the blasting car horns of wedding cavalcades making their triumphant progress along the boulevards, the whole city gripped by celebration. And underneath it all, in a kind of foreshadowing, the boom and slap of wave against the rock. And that was published by Blacknor a week ago, 2 weeks ago. This next one, Annick Yerum, who some of you may know, she gathered some of us together to create a little PDF of poems, which we asked for donations for to raise money for the kind of humanitarian efforts in Ukraine. And I felt I needed to write something hopeful. And so this poem is called Birch Song. It appeared in that anthology. It's about silver birches, who are, of course, known as the pioneer trees. They're the ones that colonized first. Birch Song. We are the first, the new beginning. 10,000 green hearts raised towards the sky. We are wind-born, seed small whispers laid upon the earth to root in the heath and heather, soften the hard edges. Our grace is upright, white, dressed in the transparency of moonlight, a beacon to bring you back from the frontier of night and the long darkness of death. The male and female of us bloom on the same bough. We are the new beginnings, green hearts raised up to the sky. Look for us in the edge places, in the damask rose of sunset, and in the morning's bright. Thank you.
Beautiful, Beth, absolutely beautiful. My favourite tree, the silver birch. Please unmute and give Beth Brooke a brilliant round of applause. Thank you so much. Lovely poems. And next up we have Carlos the Unhappy. Hello, Carlos.
Hi there. I missed last month because I had COVID, and I wrote this poem in March because what was going on in Ukraine, and I never would have dreamed that it would still be going on. I know the news told us that, but it's amazing how much it has gone on. And I wrote this at the time when we were all distracted by those massive columns of tanks heading towards the capital, when really the war was starting in Mariupol, about the time I wrote this poem. And what I wanted to try and do is try and capture the hopelessness of what it would be like to be there as a child, and manage, I think, to demonstrate the failure of language and imagination. But I'm going to share with you now anyway, and this is called Massacre of the Innocents, March 2022. And then I'm going to counterbalance it with something like Beth said, you need a bit of positivity and hope. And so I'm going to take hopelessness, and then I'm going to try and add a bit of hope after this poem. So this is a new one, and it's called Massacre of the Innocents, March 2022. And it goes like this. History and tomorrow no longer matter, only surviving the sirens. When Putin, raging, fails to recognize the court, as they always do, when insatiable content has moved to its next gluttonic feast, still the fragile, wounded children of Mariupol will taste the choking dust, the ringing silence, and soul of emptiness. History and tomorrow will still no longer matter. That's the first one. And then this is a poem from Oblivion, 200 Seasons. And it's called Struggle. And I'm not one to write political poems, even though I'm a political person, but I try to get to the core of why people join struggles. Why does it matter? And that's what I try to get here. And hopefully it ends with a bit of hope as well. So this is called Struggle. I cannot stand the slow howl of a punished dog locked out in the rain, to be in the same room as a child in pain. I find it hard to exist when the poor live in strife, where death moves easily about her business, seamlessly stealing life, and doing so lovingly so, as the first-time father's palm strokes the belly of his pregnant wife. For sure, I am weak of the will and woefully lacking the means to bring forth the fruits of long-held socialist dreams. But I tell you this, and for all that it seems, to live, to trust, to stand, to fall is the muck and stuff of life. It fails, but it teems. Thank you.
Sorry, I hadn't unmuted. Brilliant, brilliant, Carlos. Thank you so much. Please, a big hand for Carlos. I love your poetry, Carlos. Very, very, very good. Thank you. Okay, next up we have Christine Whitmore. Hi, Christine. Lovely to see you here.
Hello, it's lovely to be here and had to have heard such amazing work from Belle and Anna and everyone. Thank you. Can you hear? I'm on.
Yeah, I can hear you beautifully. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to read a poem from my book, Sudden Arabesque. And this one is, I tend to write about very small things that I see and just in ordinary places around me and to why they're moving. And I think behind this poem, it's about the time that Belinda spoke of when you're starting to let your children go. That's not mentioned in the poem, but I think it's part of what it's about. It describes the parts outside a flower, the sepals that hold the bud together. Then when the flower opens, the sepals fall down. And I found them under the poppy. The bud shell. Under the rain, a newly unfurled poppy stoops, already drenched. Down in the tangle of weeds below lie two curved sepals, fallen segments of the empty bud shell, each one satin-lined, pale silver green. They couched the petals when the bud was closed, tight knitted at the seams, a calyx locked around the brightness of the folded silk. Now, beneath the pummeling of rain, the red-sailed parachute is bruised, its shell discarded in two broken scoops. Two small coracles, filling with rainwater, derelict on the river of grasses. I lift up one lost boat and carry it, listing on my palm, inside the house, lay it on my desk among the paper drifts. I touch the softening bristles, slip my fingertip inside the thinning spoon. I cannot stop its diminishing, can only honor how well made it is, how it held on tight until the bud burst open. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Christine. I thought you had another one. Is that it?
Sorry, no, I just read one. It was quite long and it took about 2 minutes when I practiced it.
Okay,
So
lovely.
I
That's beautiful. I
Sorry.
love it. I was trying to type. This is the problem. You're trying to do this, but at the same time you want to type something, but then you get stuck on the typing and then you're not back. I was trying to, the two small coracles. I just loved that. Loved it.
Thank you.
So I didn't manage to type it, but beautiful. Thank you very much. Okay, I think we can take a couple of people from the reserve list, so we have a little bit of time. We've got Kathy Carson coming up, but I'm going to keep you to the last. Sorry, Kathy. And the next person, Cliff Cox.
Hello. Thank you. I'm new here.
Welcome.
So.
Welcome.
Okay, this poem is called Disillusion. You said to me, be like water, flow round the rocks of life, ride out the turbulence, and meander with calm as the path dictates. You said to me, my water will refresh your spirit. It will drown your selfishness and wash away your shame. With me, you will never thirst. You promised much, yet you knew your well was dry, your oasis a mirage, my thirst for enlightenment still unsatisfied.
Brilliant. Thank you. I do hope you'll come again.
Thank you. I hope so too.
Okay, thank you very much, Clifford. Next up, have we got Kate Can't read, the lights gone. Kate Jenkinson. Yes, of course, Kate Jenkinson. Kate, are you still there? Hello, Kate.
Sorry, I'm on mute and I don't have much of a voice, so I'm happy if someone else is on the reserve list to
Are
take
you
this
sure?
spot.
Okay. Are
Yeah,
you
I'm not
poorly?
very well today. I'm just
Oh
listening.
dear, there's so many people poorly. All right. Well, I'm so glad you came anyway, Kate. We'll hear from you next time. Hopefully
Thank
you'll
you
get
so
well
much.
soon.
Okay.
Okay. Then the next person I have on the list has also not been very well, I think, and that's Vicki Hampton. Hello, Vicki.
I think she had to leave earlier.
She had to leave, I think.
Oh dear. This is a terrible
the curse of Crafty Crows.
Yeah, the curse of COVID, definitely. Gosh.
The curse of Crafty COVID.
COVID and Crafty Crows don't mix. Okay. What about Rose Leonard? Have you got one, Rose?
I wasn't on the list, but I can read something if
That would be fine.
please do.
Would be good. That would be lovely.
It's a recent one, and it's called COVID in March, because I had COVID and it took me about 5 weeks to feel better, and I felt like I'd missed a lot. So anyway, COVID in March. This spring, the chiff-chaff came back from its long journey, and I was not in the wood to welcome its return. Garlic spears, wild garlic spears emerged, and hawthorn buds burst, unwitnessed by my eye. The sun gathered strength while I wasn't looking. Deep mud dried to burnished leather while my back was turned. Spring demands no audience, shrugs when I applaud. Her new life has no need of my midwifery. This spring, like every other, will swell and push and flush, whether or not I'm there to record. The loss is mine alone.
Yeah, thank you, Rose. That was beautiful. Beautiful. Well, it's funny because everybody's been telling me that it's only a cold and you shouldn't worry about getting it. But having listened to tonight, I still don't want to get it if I can help it, I must admit. So I wish you all well, all of you who have had the awful experience. I hope you're all better soon. And last but not least, let's have Kathy Carson. Welcome.
Thank you. What a night. It's brilliant. Oh my goodness. I'm so glad to get here and hear all of you. Amazing. I'm going to do a little bit from the show. So for those of you who don't know, the show is about a character called Danielle who has a tough time at home and ends up homeless at the age of 20. But I'm actually going to start this piece in the second act where she has found a place in a shelter for survivors of domestic violence. So this is the start of the climb out of the tough time that she's had. I shared a room with a family and a kitchenette with another family. I slept with my money in my socks like I had done for 5 months. I got a protection order from my dad, safety, a game of Jenga that could collapse at any given moment. And it took 8 months to get a flat. This dingy, dark, damp hole of a flat with mold in the corners but mine. A mattress on the floor and a sheet to act as curtains but mine. I got a job as a carer in an old people's home and I saved so damn hard. And I made a home in that crappy little flat. I kept it like a pin. And all the while, these old folk, though, the sheer unquestioning acceptance of them blindsided me. It turns out that kindness was so much easier to give than to accept. But I was learning, slowly. When someone frail trusts you to help them bathe, to help them eat, to help them with all the hidden intimacies of life, then you begin to trust yourself a little bit. And I was desperate to trust. I was terrified to trust. And I would step towards people and back again, and towards them and back again. And these old folk, though, they let me dance this relationship hokey cokey, because somehow, without ever being told, They knew I needed that. I kept secrets, lots of them. I found out that people have no idea how to hold your truth when it looks nothing like theirs. And words wounded easily, and I would pick at the scars. And any time that someone made me feel small, suddenly I was every child I had ever been at every age, and I ever felt small, and the other person had no idea that they were facing an army. And sometimes there were wars. And sometimes there were casualties. But always, I was sorry after. I bloody loved those old folk. I felt like I had 15 grannies and 17 granddads, and I had my favourites too. Eccentric and unbelievably posh old ladies who wore bright red lipstick, ginger wigs, and far too much flippin' underwear. And they filled their tiny rooms with books stacked on books stacked on books. And they picked my brain for crossword answers while I made their beds, and they told me their world while I bathed them. And they seemed to know by instinct to never ask about mine. Thanks, Josephine.
Thank you, Kathy. That's brilliant.
Thank you.
Fabulous. Please unmute and let's have a big hand for Kathy. Can you put your details?
Thank you, Kathy.
Can you put details of your show on the chat,
Sure.
please? That would
Yeah,
be
sure.
brilliant. Okay, that was a brilliant end to a fabulous night. Please, would you all unmute completely and give a marvelous applause for Anna Saunders' wonderful set.
Yay.
And Belinda Rimmer's wonderful set. All the fabulous open micers. The standard has been truly high and it's been wonderful to listen to. Well done, all of you. And that's the end of Crafty Crows for April. Ooh, what a night. I mean, that is fabulous. So I hope you go home with ears filled with poetry and the music of words. It's fabulous. And next month, we will be having Lucy English, which again is amazing. So thank you all.
Thank you, Josephine.
Thank you
so much. Thank you, Josephine and Peter and Jason.
You're welcome. Take care. Bye.
Take care,
Thank you,
everybody.
Anna.
Everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
I can't see Jason, so I'm not sure what he's doing. Hello, Jason.